right, so as I continue my pursuit of the moles of Oaxaca, today we're going to make mole Amarillo, or yellow mole. It gets its color from yellow chilies, which are not super easy to find. Now these chilies, I was able to order them, but most of them came in little tiny pieces like this. Just smashed up on the way here. Yeah. But anyway, this is going to take about 1.5 ounces of chilies, and I found 1 ounce of yellow ones. These are also not always available in Mexico. They can be hard to come by, and the most common substitute is the guajillo. So I've got my other 1/2 ounce with 3 guajillos and 1 arbol. The arbol is also, you know, it's a lighter colored chili. So generally when substituting, they try and find the lightest colored chilies they can. But this sauce often comes out orange rather than yellow. And since this recipe originated before the Europeans invaded, tomatoes and tomatillos are pretty common. The Europeans brought limes and other citrus that eventually got used. But before them, tomatoes and tomatillos were the sources of acid, one of the main sources of acid. So what you really are after here is an equal, even amount of tomatoes and tomatillos. Obviously, I couldn't find decent tomatillos. So these are the ones I could find, so I'm going to substitute, have a little extra tomato, a little less tomatillo. It's going to work out fine. I'm using yellow tomatoes to help make this sauce yellow. There's no need to do that, but you can, and I wanted to.
You're going with a theme.
So yeah, so there you go. This also calls for green beans and potatoes and Chayote, which is a Mexican squash, also apparently Asian. This will need to be peeled and cut into chunks. The beans I'm going to cut into little pieces, and also the potatoes. I have 3.5 cups of broth. Now if you wanted to make this vegetarian, you can use vegetable broth. I'm using duck broth. Chicken broth would be most common. And I have 5 chicken thighs that I've cut up into little chunks, bite-sized pieces. Now, traditionally, you would probably take a whole chicken, break it down, and make your chicken stock, and use those pieces of chicken, you know, take them out of the stock, reserve them, use them, serve them with your mole. However, we're not doing that, and you don't have to. So I already have the stock made, and we have boneless, skinless chicken thighs that I could cut up into little pieces. So that's the route we're taking with this one. We will break down a chicken for a mole later on, but that's another day. Another ingredient that a lot of Mexican cooking calls for is yerba santa. I have found fresh yerba santa leaves before online and had them shipped to me. But I was able to find this powdered yerba santa, so we'll be using like a teaspoon of it in place of a leaf. It has kind of a root beer sort of flavor, and it's pretty common in Mexican cooking. So, and also masa. This is corn flour. It has lime in it. I forget what the word is. It's like
harissa?
There's a process that happened to this corn before it was made into flour.
Okay.
That makes it stick together better.
Huh.
I'll have to fill you in on that one when we come back. But so I have 1.5 cups of this, and I'm going to add 1.5 cups of water that's approximately 100 degrees to it and make a dough. And we'll use the dough in a couple of ways in this recipe. So that's about it. I have this collection of herbs that go in and spices and some garlic. And this is a little bit of onion because it just doesn't need a whole onion. And so I'm going to get to prepping all this stuff, and we'll come back when we're ready to start cooking things. All right, so let's get some of this cooking. I've got my potato cut up. I'm going to put it in a pot. I'm using this pot only because I'm going to use it later when I make the whole molé. So we'll just dirty one pot for this process. I'm just going to cover those with water, and on we go. And once they start boiling, I'm going to let them boil for 10 minutes. And then I'm going to get this water hot.
Takes forever.
It does take a while.
Yeah.
That's pretty good, 99. And I'm going to get 1.5 cups to match my amount of masa. And I'm just going to go in. I'm going to get a fork. I'm going to go in, I think, a little bit at a time. That's how this is supposed to be done. I don't do this often. We're going to turn this into a dough that is the right consistency for tortillas. Smell the corn. Yeah, it's taking on a dough-like texture here. I think I can just... Looks like it's going to tend to be lumpy. Looks like too much water, and I hope it's not, because I don't have any more masa.
Uh-oh.
All right, now, fun again. Yeah, that's...
That'd be too wet.
Yeah. This
Yeah, you did it.
Yep, this should be a ball of dough. For much of what we're doing, it's not going to matter. But let's see, what can I do?
Sitting for a while might.
Yeah, let's try that. Let it sit a bit. I do have gluten-free flour. I have cornmeal. I just don't have any more masa. I added a little cornmeal to this. you know, stiffened up a little, but it still is not going to be forming a ball. But for half of this, that doesn't really matter because this is a thickening agent we're going to use later for the mole. And we are going to blend it up with some of our chicken broth. And then set it aside so it's ready to go. And we need it. So I'm going to use a cup of chicken broth. And I don't think this has to be an accurate measurement or anything, but that should be. Have a look at that.
Perfect. Yeah, 2 scoops of that thing is about a cup.
So we're just going to blend this up and set it aside. And I won't make you listen to the video. Okay, so that just blended up quick and easy. And there you have it. All right, so we're going to keep experimenting with this. I don't know if this is going to work, but we're going to keep on. So I'm going to add to this a teaspoon of salt and a tablespoon of oil. And then mix all this together. I added a little bit of cornmeal and a little bit of coconut flour, looking for a gluten-free flour. And it's a much better consistency now. Let's see what I can get it to do.
Yeah. Throw it on the floor. It's all right.
Uh-oh. So, my potatoes have been boiling for 10 minutes. And to them, I'm going to add my chayote. Now half of my chayote was brown, and I'm not going to use it. It should be a nice white flesh inside. So you can expect to get a little more out of your chayote than I got out of mine. So now I'm going to cook this for another 5 minutes before I add the beans. I'm going to see what I can get out of this while I'm doing that. Okay, so this is a very sticky ball of dough. It doesn't really see what it does when I do this. Well, it looks like it will hold a shape. And that might be a little bigger than what I'm after. Let's try one measuring. I'm after about a teaspoon of dough in a circle with a dent in the middle, just like that. And these are going to be like little dumplings for our mole. So I will continue to work on this. I know it's exciting to watch. And we'll come back. All right, so our squash has been in for 5 minutes. We're going to put the green beans in. Stir this around. And we're going to cook this now until you can get a fork through the potatoes, which should be really like another 5 minutes, maybe a little more. And in the meantime, I finally, after a while, figured out how to make these. So you get your dough and you roll it, And then it becomes much easier to work with, and then you can just do your thumbprint and away you go. There you have it. That one looks a lot better than some of my earlier attempts. These, by the way, are called Chayotes. These dough ball dumplings. And the process of turning corn into masa is called nixtamalizing.
Oh, that's a big name.
Yes. It can even be done at home. You don't have to. And nixtamalized corn itself is sometimes called hominy.
Huh.
Okay, so I'm going to cover these and set them aside. We're not going to do anything with them until our molé is quite well put together. All right, so it's been about 5 more minutes. My beans are bright green, and we don't want to overcook any of this stuff. So we're just going to drain it off, and just want it all out of the pan. There we go, and reserve it for later. So I'm just going to hang on to it in this bowl right here. So all this stuff you can have done ahead. I don't expect the process of actually putting the mole together to take just a little over an hour. Considering that all these things are already done first. All right, so we are going to cook our chicken ahead, and all we're really going to do for this is cook it in a little bit of oil. So I had a little bit of those yellow chilies, my Costeño Amarillo chilies, that was just tiny little flakes, and they did not come through well in the transit from Mexico to Canada to California. So I ground them up and turned them into the Amarillo chili powder. And I put that on this chicken while it was thawing out. And that's really the only seasoning I have on here. And this is just going to take a few minutes to cook this through. It will cook a little more in the mole. So the word mole comes from a native Mexican word for sauce or combination of things. So mole itself is just a sauce. Certain kinds of mole have become known.
Yeah, people think mole's
The
got
one
chocolate
with
in it.
chocolate. There in Oaxaca, there are 7 basic moles that have been made for centuries, and those are the moles that we're playing with. And there's a few variations on some of those as well. But that's what this quest is about, making all 7 and every variation I can find. And maybe someday I'll get to take a cooking class in Oaxaca. I'd be totally down for that. So I'm just going to let this cook along for a while, and we'll come back when something interesting is happening. All right, chicken's done. I don't want it to get overcooked or anything, so I'm just going to slide it on out of here. Kelly says this is the tool I need. Let's see.
It's just tricky with a pan. You can use this to keep it from pushing out the other
And
side.
I washed this bowl, so I'm not putting it in raw chicken juice or anything. And you can see this still has a little bit of cooking to do, which is good because we're going to put it in our mole and
Let it simmer and soak it up.
yep, let it cook with that. So yeah, so this is going to be really good. And we have pretty much all our components now ready. We have the tomatoes and
Tomatillos.
Tomatillos and chilies still to deal with. But then we're ready to combine everything. All right, so it's time to assemble our mole. I've taken all my peppers and cut them into little pieces so they'll sit on the bottom of this pot. I'm going to add my tomatoes and my tomatillos. Kind of like to have the tomatillos on the bottom, but
Yeah, they're a little harder.
and then to this I'm going to add a cup, I think, of chicken broth. So if you've worked with dried peppers or seen our videos of working with dried peppers, usually we sweat them in a pan and then soak them in hot water. That was now a cup and a half.
That's right.
I just want to bring it up enough. The tomatillos and tomatoes can steam, but the peppers have to be in some liquid. So instead of doing it that way, we are just going to boil all this and steam the skins off the tomatoes. We want to get rid of those, but we want the peppers to soften, and we're just going to do it along with these other things. Fruits, I guess they are. And you'd think I'd know my own stove. But so this is probably going to cook for about 10 minutes. And I am going to keep the lid on it. Once it starts boiling, I'll give it probably 10 minutes. And the peppers should be soft by then, and the skin should come off the tomatoes. And we'll let it cool down a little bit before we put it in the blender, because blending hot things can be difficult. Mm-hmm. All right, so this has been boiling for 8 minutes, and I'm just gonna turn it off. The tomatillos have turned bright green, and that's how you know they've done their job in here.
Can you turn that? Oh, it is off. Never mind. I thought I saw a flame over there.
I'm going to take these tomatoes out of here. I'm actually going to
yeah, those are really done.
wait until they cool off a little, try and get the skin off, which, you know, I don't always do. And everything else needs to cool a little, and we're going to throw all this in the blender with some spices and some herbs. And, okay, so I managed to get most of the peel off of these tomatoes. Ooh, that was squirted.
You said they were yellow tomatoes, but they're heirlooms.
Yeah, they're yellow.
I know they're yellow,
what
but
would you call that?
I know they're yellow, but you can't go to the store and say, "Where are your yellow tomatoes?"
Well,
Luckily, our store
okay,
has.
so I'm going to put everything from this pot in the blender, and that's the tomatillos, all the chilies, and the duck stock, which is why we cook this in duck stock. Because, you know, the chilies, when you cook them up like this, they impart a lot of flavor to the water they're in, and we don't want to lose that, so you might as well use your stock that you're using for your mole. To this, we are going to add, I have about 5 garlic cloves. I'm going to add 1/4 of an onion. How about that?
Sounds good. That's about what that is.
Looks like 1/4 of an onion. I'm going to add 1/8 of a teaspoon of cinnamon, black pepper, right? No, it's
That
not.
wasn't pepper. Oh, that is pepper.
So, I'm sorry, 1/4 of a teaspoon of cinnamon, black pepper, cumin, yeah, 1/4. And then 1/8 of a teaspoon of cloves, which makes total sense. You don't want cloves to overpower everything. And 1/2 teaspoon of Mexican oregano. I think we can go a little big on this. Mexican oregano is a completely different plant than Italian oregano. Carries with it some different characteristics. And then we're going to add a little more stock, just so we can.
When do you add the?
Herbasanta, that
Yeah.
comes in later.
Okay.
So we're gonna blend this until it's as smooth as we can possibly get it. All right, so this looks like it's a pretty smooth liquid. You have the opportunity at this point, if you want to sieve it and get the rest of these little bit of tomato skins and pepper skins and tomato peels, you can, but I'm not going to bother with this one. I've done that recently. So what we're going to do is heat up some oil in our pan, and we're going to cook this. And how long are we going to cook it for, you ask? Well,
We'll know when you're doing it.
I'll tell you later. It's probably going to be about 15 minutes. After I put this in the pan, I'm just waiting for the oil to get hot. But after I put it in the pan, so there's this trick to gas stoves.
Turn on the right burner.
Nothing gets hot if it's on the wrong burner.
And never put a towel on the stove.
So once I empty this out, I'm going to put the rest of my duck stock, in the blender, swook it, and pour it in here, just so I get all the rest of the goodness out of this thing. So I suppose we should probably come back. The oil's hot, so in we go. Oh yeah, that was good and hot. So there's enough oil in there that we're actually going to add some fat content to our stuff, which is really helpful in the flavor department. So I'm going to let this. This really wants to cook, and I'm going to take the rest of our duck broth and put it in the blender and clean out the rest of this good flavored stuff.
I don't want to waste that.
That was probably about a 1/2 cup.
That beautiful stock.
Yep. There we go. In our pot. And we're gonna let this cook for by itself for 10 minutes at least. Yeah. Well, so while our molé is cooking, it's my birthday, and I opened a birthday bottle of wine, Mercury Head from Orin Swift. We did make a video of going to the Orin Swift winery, but this is a 2017 Napa Cab that is just top of the line. It's top of the Orin Swift line, and it's just a really delicious Napa Cab. It's full of fruit. It's got some spices and very little tannins, which Kelly and I both enjoy. Not having a lot of tannin. It's really nice. And if you've ever had the Prisoner wine, it's the same winemaker, but many years later after he developed that wine. So this is really good, and happy birthday.
To you.
And, you know, some people might think, oh, you had to cook on your birthday? That's my choice.
Yeah.
I love to cook, so this is what I'd love to do on my birthday, make a mole. All right, so this has been cooking along for a good 10 minutes here. I had it cooking pretty good. It's on medium-low heat, but it's definitely bubbling. So remember our masa that we blended up? We're going to add that in.
With broth?
With broth, yeah. Oh.
Some chunks?
So now, as this cooks, this should begin to thicken. And we're going to give this another 10 minutes for sure to thicken this a little bit. We're still looking, well, once that mixes in, it's starting to get a little more yellow.
It's kind of orange.
Yeah, orange, and that's what happens when you use the Guajillo chilies. So sometimes this sauce is referred to as mole naranja. How do you pronounce that? J, I forget. No, naranja.
No J.
Orange mole. But it's still mole Amarillo. So now that we added the masa, it's thickening. You want to stir a lot. You can see that we've developed this beautiful orange color here. I think that's as close as we're going to get to yellow. And I'm going to add the chicken and let that warm back up. And that won't mind having a little more cook on it. But it's coming along. Once this warms back up, I'm really not going to wait very long, and I'm going to add the veggies back in. And then we have our dumplings. Our what? Chochoyetes. Chochoyotes.
Tochiotes?
Chochoyotes. And then a little bit of the yerba santa or herba santa leaf. And that's our dish. All right, so that was 10 minutes on the meat. I'm going to add the veggies. I just have to do it that direction.
No, I was going to say I can't see
Yeah,
what
I
you're
know,
doing.
you can't see, but
You need to practice your ambidextry.
they're in here. And so this has just cooking along with the masa in there. this is just keeps thickening, and it's turning into this delightful thick stew. I really want to let these vegetables cook for another probably 10 minutes in here. Wow, this is something it's so thick, I'm thinking about adding more duck broth, but I'm not going to.
I don't think you need
right
to,
at the moment.
because it's supposed to be a stew, right? It'll be fine. It's not a soup. Looks perfect.
Yeah. All right, so I'm going to put our yerba sante in here. You know, if we had a fresh leaf, we would add it last, but I want to mix this in before we put our
those things with the big name.
yeah, our chochiones, or our masa balls.
No, they're not possible.
This is really a kosher mole. It has masa balls.
So we've had a discussion about the thickness of this, and I think that's perfect.
It's really pretty thick, so we're gonna add
that.
we're gonna add our chochiones, and they're gonna suck up some moisture. But from this point on, we can't stir too hard, or these will just all break up.
They're sort of like corn dumplings.
Yeah, we want them to be dumplings in our soup.
How many minutes do you cook that?
You know, I really don't know.
We're gonna have to taste one to see. It's like dumplings are 10 minutes and 20 minutes, so.
Yeah, so the recipe that I'm looking at says cook these until they're done. They should be shiny. So, you know, they do give some clues anyway. Spoon the stuff over the dumplings so that they start to sink into the, you know, into the whole stew. Don't want to break them up, but I do want them to get in there and cook. I'll see, I'm breaking them up.
Maybe let them cook a little while and then do that.
Well, we want to get them covered. Okay.
Yeah, looks good.
We'll let this cook along now. This is probably going to be about 10 minutes for those. And then that's it. We get to eat. All right, so this came out beautifully. It's really very orange, and that's gonna be because of the chilies we chose. Wow. So the masa comes through as you would kind of expect. The chilies they're really delicious. They definitely have some heat. There's some heat going on here. I would garnish with lime because maybe because I didn't have enough tomatillos, but there's not a lot of acid in this. Super delicious dish. We'll make this again. So just watch me eat this.
Happy birthday.
And then sip on my orange Swift.
Yeah. Happy birthday to you.
Yep, that's pretty good. So thank you for watching Two Cooks in the Kitchen. Subscribe and you'll see all of our... They used to be wild and crazy antics. Now they're just kind of okay antics.
Oh, we're still fun. Come on.
And we'll see you next time.